Welcome, I'm Brian Downs, this is ProSex Studio, and this is part 2 of Tony's arc, where we are examining Iron Man's sexual history and sex life in the MCU. This is part of a series of videos where I'm going to show that popular culture is designed to make you hate yourself. Popular culture is engaged in an ongoing campaign to make you feel bad about your sexuality, your sexual desire, and your sex life. This is part of the new Victorianism of our era. Why don't you go ahead and like, subscribe, share this on Facebook, especially before you finish watching the video, because then if you don't like it, hey, you already shared it, so too late. So if you thought that that little kiss between Tony Stark and Pepper Potts at the end of Iron Man 2 was bucking the trend of sex negativity that imbues these films, you were kind of right, but they're going to walk that dog back right now at the beginning of Iron Man 3. The first 5 seconds of Iron Man 3 is voiceover from Tony saying, "A famous man once said, we create our own demons." Well, what he's talking about is the scene that we're going to see right now, where Tony is partying like it's 1999, because it is 1999, at a conference in Bern, and he's flirting with a female scientist there. It's after hours and the party's on. Her name is Maya Hansen. She's played by Rebecca Hall, who I think is an underrated actress, by the way. Now, Tony and Ms. Hansen are going to go to bed together shortly, but in order to make that happen, Tony has to ditch Aldrich Killian, kind of a fanboy scientist who wants to talk to him about a proposal. Tony tells Aldrich to go wait for him on the roof. Tony will come meet him, but he doesn't go to meet. Instead, he goes to bed with Hansen. By the way, that would have been my choice too. Killian's disappointment at being stood up like this will lead him to become a mad scientist. And as it turns out, later in the film, if you haven't seen it, skip this part of the video, Maya Hansen will join his nefarious project. So this brings us right back to my famous memes. I've discovered 12 memes that keep turning up in popular movies and television that are designed to make you feel bad about your sexuality. Meme number 1 is the wanting disaster. Having sex, wanting sex, attempting sex, being interested in sex, even sometimes talking about sex, is followed by some kind of catastrophe. Not necessarily a direct causal relationship, but here it is, a direct causal relationship. Later, Tony will say, "I had just created demons." With the power of his demon dick, apparently, going to bed with another consenting adult is creating supervillains, putting the world at risk. Literally, these people, Killian and Mayo, will go on to create a villainous conspiracy that will threaten civilization as we know it. So be careful what you do with your penis, because you could wind up getting the president killed. There's also meme number 5. It's villains who screw. Try not to get demonetized. It's the actual name of the memes. It's villains who fuck. It's bad people who have sex. Now, not Tony in this case. He's not the bad person. Maya Hansen is. And this seems to have turned her into a bad person. It's this conference that will lead her down the road of villainy and apparently this sexual encounter. In the voiceover, I want to reiterate, Tony literally says, "So why am I telling you this?" Why is he telling us this? To make us feel bad about sex. So why am I telling you this? Because I had just created demons and I didn't even know it. So, 13 minutes into the film, flash forward to the present day, coincidentally 13 years later. And Aldrich Killian shows up at Stark Industries to take a meeting with the CEO, Pepper Potts. Aldrich, wants to work with Stark Industries, wants to get together in order to promote and develop his Extremis program, which is genetic engineering and this kind of thing. Killian is now very suave, very handsome, played by Guy Pearce in a suit, articulate, handsome, good looking, not the limping nerd that we saw 13 years ago, right? Pepper is surprised to see him this way. She had known him in the past. And Pepper says to Happy, the head of security, "Well, this guy used to ask me out in the past, so it's awkward." What's awkward? What's weird about it? Sex. He was interested in Pepper. And again, why wouldn't he be? Pepper is accomplished, smart, hardworking, ambitious, beautiful. who wouldn't be attracted to her? But the fact that he was attracted to her is weird. This is one of the memes, which is, your problem is sex. Sexuality is almost always portrayed as a character flaw, if not outright villainy, in movies and television. What was awkward between them? His sexual interest in her. But now he's handsome and articulate and suave and has a really interesting project. And it's obvious that Pepper is attracted to him. She finds him attractive. And that's sinister. How do we know that Aldrich Killian is probably the bad guy? Because Pepper is clearly attracted to him. Again, but, same thing again, who wouldn't be attracted to him? Played by Guy Pearce, smart, hardworking, good-looking, well-dressed. Why not be attracted? Why wouldn't you be attracted? But don't, because he's a villain. And within 2 minutes of screen time, Happy is calling Tony Stark to report this meeting to him because he senses the sexual subtext. What's sinister about this? The sexuality. Why does it need to be reported to Tony? Sexuality. But it's at 19 minutes into Iron Man 3 that we come upon a very, very interesting scene. Pepper Potts comes home to the Malibu mansion. Apparently she and Tony are living together now. That's not actually addressed directly. It just appears that they're living together now. Tony's in the basement and he's remotely controlling a drone suit. He's just developed the drone suits. He uses the drone suit to greet Pepper when she comes into the living room. Pepper doesn't realize it's a drone. Pepper thinks Tony is in that suit. And Pepper starts flirting with Tony, which is to say the suit, at full speed. Eye contact and batting her eyelashes. Why don't you lift up that face mask and give me a kiss? She says to the drone. It's okay for Pepper to express her sexuality when Tony isn't actually in the room, right? We don't see Pepper express her sexuality for Tony very often. Usually she's expressing her exasperation and her anger, and that's their relationship. She is his mother. It's okay for her to express her sexuality when it's not Tony, when Tony's not actually in the room. Well, Tony puts her off with some excuse because Tony realizes that it's a drone. He's not actually in the suit. So Pepper says, why don't I just run down to the garage and see if I can find a crowbar to jimmy that thing open? Let me go down to the garage to get a rigid phallic symbol to gain access to you sexually, right? This is very clear. The subtext is obvious. Can a subtext be obvious? This subtext is obvious. So she goes down to the garage, but that's where she finds the actual Tony using the remote control. Now, as soon as she's in the room with Tony, her behavior changes from flirtatious and sexy to angry. That this was a drone and not actually Tony upsets her. So now she's angry, and he deflects into Aldrich Killian. What was that about? She's upset that Happy told on her. She starts to storm out, but then he admits to his PTSD symptoms, which I think is a terrific thing in this film that they're addressing that. The Iron Man, Tony Stark, has been through a lot. A lot of battles, a lot of stress, a lot of terror, and it's absolutely realistic that he might be suffering psychologically. This is where he says to her, I love you. In the previous film, he said, I love you when he was drunk and before their relationship had started, and she dismissed it. Now she receives it with a stony demeanor. That's also very telling. He can't even say, I love you to Pepper and have her accept that. She doesn't say, I love you too. She doesn't say, I want to spend my life with you. She doesn't say, take your pants off. She accepts it stonily here because she's angry, right? It was fine for her to act sexy when Tony wasn't in the room, when it was the drone, but now the movie has her in the room with Tony and she's angry and they're having an argument. We have to keep these characters apart sexually as much as we can. They embrace, but in a motherly way. Pepper is Tony's mommy. He puts his head on her chest. And the scene ends with her saying, I'm going to take a shower, which he reads as, see you later, because she's walking out of the room. They've just had an argument. She's walking out of the room. She says, I'm going to take a shower. She said, I, not we. He replies to that with, okay. And she replies with, and you're going to join me. Her tone is angry. Now Tony agrees. He says, better. And he apparently goes along with her. Her tone is angry. It seems like she's inviting him to have a sexual encounter. Her man, they've known each other many years, they live together, they are lovers, but she can't invite him to have sex without doing it in this angry way that he, of course, misunderstood because she framed it in a way that was easy to misunderstand. I am going to take a shower as she walks away from him. You know, he didn't get it. So we can't have their sex be sexy or loving or affectionate. It has to be angry. Do we then get, for example, a shot of the bathroom door, steam coming out of it? Maybe we hear Pepper laugh, right, or something like that. No. I understand this is PG-13. I understand it's aimed at a young audience. I'm not asking for Pornhub, right? How about a shot of the outside of the bathroom door, steam coming out, we hear Pepper laugh. That's it. We don't get that. Also, this is an example of bad behavior by Pepper. Again, a sub-theme on my channel here is that we often see female characters engaging in behavior that we would not accept from a male character. She orders him, and you're going to join me. Angrily orders him into this sexual encounter, which he's eager to follow and do. Can you imagine a male character, any of these male characters in the MCU or in movies generally, ordering the woman, and you're going to come have sex with me right now? Would that be okay? No, we would find that repulsive, really. It's not too strong a word. Pepper peremptorily orders him, you're going to join me, into the shower. But that's not a direct reference to sex either. It's not, we're going to have sex, we're going to make love. We don't get any shot of the shower or anything close to it. Again, no steam coming out of the door, nothing like that. We just jump cut to the two of them in bed together. But they're in bed, they're asleep, they're facing away from each other, they're both dressed up to their collarbones, up to their Adam's apples. He's wearing a t-shirt and boxer shorts, she's wearing a nightgown. They have a cover, a blanket pulled up to their chests, and they're facing away from each other and are asleep. There's no eroticism here, there's no... They're in the same bed, but that's the closest we get to intimacy. They're not touching or even facing each other. There's no partial nudity or nudity of any kind. Certainly no sex, no kissing, no embracing. They're asleep. Oh, and he's having a nightmare. Now, as far as I know, there are 3 scenes where people are in bed together in the MCU, and every one of them features Tony Stark. There's this one, but compare this, where people are asleep and fully dressed and facing away from each other, with the scene where he goes to bed with Christine Everhart, the journalist, where there is kissing and panting and groping and long stretches of bare thigh, and they fall off the bed. There's so much energy going on. Or where he goes to bed with Maya Hansen in the beginning of this film, where there's clear eroticism and flirtation and lots of eye contact and batting of eyelashes and so on. Compare that to when he's in bed with Pepper. This scene follows an argument where she was storming out in a huff, where he's trying to admit to his own PTSD, and features no eroticism at all, and Tony's having a nightmare as a PTSD symptom. I mean, I want to emphasize this again. There are 3 scenes where people are in bed together in the entire MCU. There's the one where Tony bangs Everhart, turning her into trash, where he bangs Maya, turning her into a demon, and now. So Tony is having a nightmare, he's shivering, he's moaning. Pepper wakes up, she tries to shake him awake, Tony, and then suddenly Pepper is grabbed by one of the drone suits that has responded to Tony's agitated mental state. He controls them with a direct neural interface. Pepper screams, Tony jumps up, he shuts the suit down, and Pepper storms out. I'm going to sleep downstairs, tinker with that, she tells him, which is a callback to his earlier line about I tinker, when he's talking about why he spends so much time with the drone suits and the Iron Man equipment. Well, this is meme number 1, the wanting disaster. Having sex, wanting sex, attempting sex, which, by the way, was only implied here. Again, we go from you're going to join me in the shower to them being facing away from each other in bed. but this leads to what appears to be a serious rupture in their relationship and this terrifying incident. And then the next thing that happens in the film, in the next scene, Happy, played by Jon Favreau, of course, is badly injured in an attack by the forces of evil. Ultimately, it's Aldrich Killian, of course, although he's using the Mandarin as a sock puppet. So, sex, terror, death, injury. Well, then Tony announces that he will kill the Mandarin, and Maya Hansen shows up at the Malibu mansion and tells Tony they need to talk. Tony does not remember their encounter 13 years ago, at least not at first. She says, "I need to be alone with you, someplace not here," meaning the foyer. "It's urgent." And Tony replies with, "Normally I'd go for that sort of thing, but now I'm in a committed relationship." So, this is a woman he has had sex with, a very attractive woman. He immediately assumes that what she wants is sex. What happens next? Pepper comes home. Or downstairs, rather. She was already in the house. She comes down the stairs and she starts arguing with Tony about how they should go into hiding, they should leave the mansion. There's tension between Pepper and Maya because they are somehow rivals for Tony's affection, although it seems to me that Pepper won that contest because Pepper lives with him and he hasn't spoken to Maya in more than a decade. And then the forces of evil attack. Killian's forces, mercenaries, drop an airstrike on the mansion and nearly kill everyone. So, again, sex followed immediately by death, terror, misery, danger. Number one, the wanting disaster. Oh, and by the way, of course, it's shortly thereafter that we discover that Maya is with the forces of evil. So she is someone who had sex with Tony, therefore she's bad. 1 hour, 14 minutes into the film, Tony tracks down the infamous terrorist mastermind, the Mandarin, who has his mansion in Miami. Tony penetrates the mansion with improvised weapons to discover that the Mandarin is a sham. He is Aldrich Killian's sock puppet. The Mandarin himself, played very charmingly by Ben Kingsley, doesn't even realize really the extent of what's going on. Who is surrounding the Mandarin? Well, after Tony fights his way through the guards. Beautiful girls in bikinis. And it's heavily implied that the Mandarin is having sexual relations with them, although not directly. No one actually says, yes, the Mandarin is having sex with these women. So, here we are again with your problem is sex. That characters who have sex or want sex or enjoy sex, that is their character flaw. Closely related, of course, to its villains who have sex. It's also, number 4, serious people don't sex. The Mandarin is a deeply unserious person, or the actor anyway who portrays the Mandarin is deeply unserious, and he has a sex life. It's the sex life that makes him unserious. So we see over and over and over again in these films, in the MCU films, sex is never portrayed in a positive light. It's portrayed as a reason for anxiety, for anger, for damage to relationships. It is not presented as being pleasant or fulfilling or elevating or joyful. Never. 1 hour, 20 minutes into the movie, Tony has been captured by Team Killian. And he's talking to Maya, and he realizes that Maya is part of the Team Killian's villainous conspiracy. And Tony says to her, "Now look at you. I get to wake up every morning next to someone who still has their soul. I get to wake up every morning. Not I embrace them every night, not I go to bed with them every night, not my lover has her soul, no. He never uses any word to describe Pepper that indicates a sexual relationship. Not girlfriend, not wife, not bang buddy, nothing. And Pepper still has her soul. Notice that Pepper and Tony have never had a sexual encounter as passionate as the one as he had with Maya, as much fun as the one he had with Maya seemed to be when it was presented in the first few minutes of this film. In fact, it cannot be proven by the text that Tony and Pepper have ever had sex. At no point does Tony or Pepper say about their relationship with one another, this is a sexual relationship, you are my lover, we have sex. Doesn't happen. Do we see them having sex? No, we do not. Do we see them even in the same bed together in a way that would imply that they have sex? No, we don't. That never happens. No other character ever says, oh, it's Tony and his girlfriend Pepper, right? No. His lover Pepper, his wife Pepper. I don't think anyone ever uses those words to describe Pepper because those words would imply a sexual relationship. The movies are trying very, very, very hard to make it look like these people don't have a sexual relationship, or at least the minimal amount. Now notice this though, you're sitting there right now saying, Brian, of course they have a sexual relationship, that was clear to me when I was watching the films the first time. Yes, that's the illusion they create. You say to yourself, that's a sexual relationship, but when you actually look at the text carefully, there's almost nothing to say conclusively that Pepper and Tony have sex, but we know conclusively that Tony had sex with both Christine Everhart and Maya Hansen. Christine was made into trash, Maya was made into a demon. Within a couple of minutes of Tony talking about people's souls, Maya is dead. She turns on Killian and Killian kills her. She enjoyed having sex with Tony. She does not make it to the end of the movie. She will not be coming back for the sequel. Tony's dick turned her into a demon and then into a corpse. An hour and 54 minutes into the movie, after the climactic battle on the container ships, Pepper, who is temporarily a super being because she was given the extremis medical treatment and now has, superhuman strength and agility and can breathe fire and stuff, and is using some Iron Man weapons. It's Pepper who kills Killian. Not Iron Man, but Pepper. Why is it Pepper? Because Killian used to ask her out. Remember back at the beginning of this film where Pepper said, oh yeah, this awkward nerd used to ask me out and it's awkward. Killian displayed sexual interest in Pepper, both in the backstory and when he showed up in his suave Guy Pearce incarnation. He clearly was demonstrating his sexual interest. Therefore, Pepper has to kill him. Because it's villains who have sex. Now we're going to get into a little bad behavior. Again, the sub-theme of my channel. When we see bad behavior by female characters that we would reject from male characters, we would reject it as stupid, as selfish, as nonsensical. Pepper wants Tony to give up the Iron Man project, the Iron Man drones that he's created. She talks about it as if it's an addiction. She describes it as a distraction, apparently, from his relationship with her, I guess, being the life partner of a handsome, charming, super intelligent billionaire is a hard road to hoe for her, and the fact that he's very much absorbed in the Iron Man project isn't good enough. In spite of the fact that, to date, the Iron Man suits have helped save the world several times against Aldous Killian most recently. But Pepper wants him to give them up because she's jealous of them. Can you imagine anybody? Can you imagine Black Widow having a boyfriend who says, but you spend so much time in the Avengers? What is it with all the gadgets? No, you can't. Apparently, it's alright for him to keep the one suit, though, just the one super weapon, which has remodeled the international relations on Earth and saved the human race from a terrible fate more than once. It's okay for him to keep that, but he needs to blow the drones up because his girlfriend's jealous. At the end, they embrace. He kisses her cheek. Not much eroticism there. In Age of Ultron, Almost no sexuality from Tony Stark at all. He makes one passing. Pepper Potts isn't even in the film. Agent Hill, formerly of S.H.I.E.L.D., is now doing Pepper's job at Stark Industries. I'm not sure where Pepper is. Tony makes one passing reference to, I'd like to buy a farm, with Pepper, like our friend Hawkeye's, and just, live a simple life out there. Their relationship isn't about sex in any way. There's no eroticism, there's no reference to it. The woman doesn't even appear in this film. Their relationship is now about real estate, because real estate doesn't include erections. Civil War, similar, very similar to Age of Ultron. In 58 minutes into Civil War, Tony is having a conversation with Captain America. Pepper, again, doesn't appear in this film. We don't see Gwyneth Paltrow's face. Tony has to say to Captain America about he and Pepper, we're taking a break. It's nobody's fault. A few years ago, I almost lost her, so I trashed all of my suits. Then we had to mop up Hydra, and then Ultron, my fault. And then I never stopped, because the truth is I don't want to stop. I don't want to lose her. I thought maybe the Accords would split the difference. In her defense, I'm a handful. I'm returning to my sub-theme here of bad behavior by female characters. Throughout these movies, Pepper is presented as resenting the fact that Tony is Iron Man. Although that is Tony's identity, the Iron Man hero. That's most of what he does with his time. And he's saved the world, I've lost track how many times at this point. But Pepper wants him to give that up so that he can spend more time with her, I guess. You could argue that she's concerned for his safety. Okay, that's fine, but maybe, and I understand that she would be, but maybe she could be concerned for the safety of her species versus threats like Loki. Also, I have no sympathy for her in this. Being the life partner of a handsome, charming, sexy billionaire apparently isn't enough for her. He also has to not be defending the human race. It's fairly early in Infinity War that we have a very interesting scene. It's 11 minutes into the film. Stark and Pepper are in a public park and in broad daylight among people dressed up to their Adam's apples, of course, so there's no eroticism here. And Tony is telling Pepper that he had a dream that the two of them had a daughter named Morgan. Of course, their having a daughter would imply a sexual relationship, although people do adopt children. Pepper's attitude is warm, but also her attitude is that's ridiculous. The tone is lightly argumentative, where Tony's saying, are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? Because I had a dream. And Pepper is saying, no, I'm not. It's not possible. Now, notice that no one makes any direct reference to sex here. Again, no one makes any direct reference to sex. Tony does not say, because it is possible you could be pregnant because we have sex 3 times a week. It is possible you could be pregnant because we engage in the procreative act. No, doesn't happen. Pepper doesn't say anything like, it's not possible that I'm pregnant because I have a birth control implant and therefore our sex life together is not going to produce a child. Now, there's no direct reference to sex here. In fact, just the dialogue involved could be read as Pepper saying it's not possible for me to be pregnant because we don't have sex. She doesn't say that specifically, but you could read that as the subtext. Even in this conversation, the movie will not fully acknowledge that they have a sexual relationship. That's all kept as subliminal as possible, as backgrounded as possible. Then they share an affectionate kiss together, an affectionate kiss in broad daylight in a crowd of people in the park. Doctor Strange appears via Sorcerer's Portal to say, Thanos is coming. This is meme number 1, the wanting disaster. You try to have a kiss with your fiancé, world's gonna end. Bam! This is also, of course, the meme of celebrating celibate marriage. They are engaged to be married, but as far as can be determined, their relationship is sexless. And sexy celibates. They're very attractive people who don't have sex. We return again to Pepper's selfish bad behavior when at the end of the fight in New York versus the Ebony Maw and that other big henchman, Tony winds up on the ship which is taking the captive Doctor Strange to Thanos, And he gets a call from Pepper, which is cut off by interference, where she demands that he leave that ship and return to her. Never mind that half the creatures in the universe, including potentially Tony and Pepper, are at risk. Tony ought to stop being an Avenger because he is Pepper's personal property. Can we imagine a scene? I want you to try to bring it into your head where there's a scene where some boyfriend of Captain Marvel's, Captain Marvel doesn't have a boyfriend or girlfriend or any partner at all because meme number 4, serious people don't sex. But imagine a scene where a boyfriend of Captain Marvel's is saying, hey, give up on being Captain Marvel because I want you to spend more time with me. Is that going to happen? No. And if it did, we would think that guy was a schmuck. If a man did this, we would reject the behavior utterly as unworthy. If a woman does it, she's cute or something. But the really interesting stuff regarding Tony's sex arc is in Endgame. 3 minutes into Endgame, Tony is adrift in space, running out of food, running out of oxygen. Luckily, his oxygen will run out before he starves to death. He's up there with Nebula, by the way, as a result of the big battle versus Thanos at the end of Infinity War. Facing his own death, he records a last video message to Pepper, which he opens it by calling her Miss Potts. Incredibly formal for your life partner and lover. He makes no reference whatsoever to their sex life. None. He doesn't say, I would like, to hold you in my arms in our bed again. Nothing. Zero. I understand this is PG-13. I'm not asking for F-bombs. Makes no reference to their sex life. He calls her Miss Potts. Interestingly, in this message, he doesn't even use the word love. He says, I'm dreaming of you. Okay, that's adorable. No reference to sexuality here at all. He gets rescued by Captain Marvel. He's returned to Earth. He discovers in this way that Pepper is still alive. He didn't know if Pepper had been snapped out of existence or not. Any reference to sexuality when they're reunited? No, I know that he's malnourished and in poor health. Not anything. Does the highly libidinous Tony say, hey, I'm going to eat a sandwich and then I'm going to chew your panties off? No, nothing. Zero, zip. No reference to sexuality. Period. We don't even see them in the same bed. 33 minutes into Endgame. It's 5 years later, and we see Tony is now retired to a house by a lake with a little girl named Morgan Stark. Tony is outside with a little girl. We don't see anyone else. He and his daughter refer to Mommy, a woman who is nearby. But Tony doesn't use the word Pepper. If you just watch that scene without the assumption that Pepper is the mother, there's nothing in there to tell you that Pepper is the mother. It's just Tony with this little girl, who, by the way, doesn't look like Pepper at all. When I first saw the scene, I wondered if they were faking me out because the little girl has dark hair and kind of an olive skin complexion, and I'm thinking, did Tony hook up with Aunt May? Did Tony have a child with Aunt May? But there's nothing there to connect that child to Pepper, not in that scene, which means we're pushing the possibility of Tony having a sex life just as far away as we possibly can. He doesn't say, your mother, Pepper. No, he doesn't do that. This is designed to push the idea of Tony and Pepper having sex as far out of the audience's mind as possible. So, again, this is meme number 9, celebrating celibate marriage. We're trying to absolutely push sexuality out of their relationship. Even they have a child, but the child, of course, is 4 years old. So there's no proof that they've had sex in the last 4 years. And this is negative meme number 4, serious people don't sex. Tony is a hero, Pepper is a heroic character as well. We are going to absolutely sublimate the idea that they might have sex at any time, ever. Now, let's move on to 41 minutes into the film. The other Avengers have come to Tony's retirement house by the lake and said, hey, we think we can fix this. We think we can save everyone. We think we can reverse what Thanos did, time travel, etc. We need your help. Tony's like, nope, not doing it. We tried it. We screwed it up. I'm not risking it again. Of course, he doesn't stick to that. He figures out time travel. He goes to talk to Pepper about it. This is the first time that Pepper appears in this film. Where is she? She's fully dressed. Tony puts Morgan to bed. Tony and Pepper don't interact with Morgan together. Right? So they don't even really parent together. which again implies that they didn't sex together to create this child. They're not working together to raise the child. Tony goes into the living room where Pepper is fully dressed reading a book. And they talk about what's going on, and he says, "I've just figured out time travel." Why isn't this scene set in their bedroom? Tony could have gone upstairs to the bedroom. Pepper could have been in a nightgown, lying in their bed, reading a book. Pepper could have said, "Oh, good, you're here. I've been lonely," wink, wink, right? A little bit of sexuality between them before Tony says, "Hey, hang on, I need to tell you something, time travel." No, doesn't happen. He goes into the we don't even see their bedroom. We don't see the adult bedroom, which would imply a sexual relationship. We don't see them in bed together in any capacity. Again, I'm not talking about penetration. I'm not talking about splashing. I'm talking about the bed. He gets in the bed while she's in it. Doesn't happen. She's in the living room. Do they embrace? Do they kiss? Do they make out? Do they fool around? Does he say, "Hey, you want to fuck to celebrate time travel?" No. Tony and Pepper cannot be proven by the text to have ever had sex. They talk about Morgan, but I don't think anyone ever uses a phrase like "our daughter." Tony never says, "I remember being in the hospital when you gave birth to Morgan," which would at least directly reference that Pepper is Morgan's biological mother. Doesn't happen. Because we have to keep sex out of it. Sex can't even be on the horizon. Because, meme number 4, serious people don't sex. And very often, this is about parents. It is here in this movie. More commonly, you see this being about parents in dramas that are set in small towns, not superhero epics. But meme number 4, serious people don't sex, especially parents. Parents can't have a sex life with each other, and certainly not with anyone besides their co-parent, because that would be terrible too. 2 hours, 34 minutes into Endgame. Near the end, Iron Man, of course, sacrifices himself to use the Infinity Stones to destroy Thanos and his legions and to bring back everyone who was snapped out of existence 5 years ago. Pepper is there, and she gets to watch him die. It's all right for your life partner to watch you die. It's not all right for your life partner to put your erection in her mouth. While she's there, tears on her face, watching him die, they do not use the word love with one another. They use no word, again, not wife, not girlfriend, not bang buddy, not anything, to indicate that they're in a sexual relationship with one another. Of course, not also words like boyfriend, husband. She says, "Tony, look at me. We're going to be okay. You can rest now." Tony's job is to execute responsibilities, not to be her lover. He dies, and she kisses the cheek of his corpse. That's okay. Once you're a corpse, they can kiss you. Again, no reference to sexuality here whatsoever, even when he's dying in front of her eyes. The message here, over and over and over again in the sex arc of Tony Stark, is that sex is bad. To want sex, to have sex, to desire sex proves that you're stupid or irresponsible and almost always leads to a bad result. Again, it's not always a literal cause and effect, but the bad result happens very shortly after the sexuality. Serious people don't sex. Sexy, sexy celibates, celebrating celibate marriage. Your problem is sex, of course. That Tony Stark is interested in sex and good at sex and has no trouble getting sex is presented as his major character flaw. Tony Stark can be proved by the text of the films to have gone to bed with 2 women. Maya Hansen, who he turned into a supervillain with the power of his demon dick, and Christine Everhart, who ever after everyone in the Iron Man films treats like trash, the journalist from Vanity Fair, because she went to bed with Tony. That's what's wrong with her. And then notice that at the end of this MCU, which I'm sure they'll reboot in the future, but at the end of this version, there are 2 Avengers who are dead. Black Widow, who is very, very sexy, although cannot be proven to have ever had sex in her life. But she's the sexually alluring woman who uses her sexuality to achieve goals, to mislead, to deceive, and so on. I talked about this in the Black Widow video. She's dead. And Tony Stark, who can be proven to have had sex, who likes sex, who wants sex, who has recreational sex. Tony has to die. Popular culture wants you to feel terrible about your sexuality all of the time. So I hope you found that, interesting, eye-opening. If you're interested in MCU stuff like this, check out my videos on Captain America and Black Widow, which are also available on this channel. You can like, you can subscribe, you can tell your mom about all this, because that'll be a fun conversation to have. And watch this space for more videos about this phenomenon. I'm going to be handling not only MCU, science fiction films and so on, but other kinds of movies as well. Some historical dramas and, other things. Also television series, Netflix. Because this insidious campaign against your sexual mental health is being waged on you from all fronts. Have a nice day.